Welcome back, everybody, to the Scaled Success Reptile Podcast. Thanks for joining us tonight. And tonight we have Shane Kelly of Small Town Xotics as a guest. So we're going to talk ball pythons, hognose, and a few other species that he has. So, guys, if you're a regular here, thank you for joining us tonight. If you're new and join us, make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button, and thanks for joining us tonight. Um, so, we took off. We'll give you guys up. If you guys are regular, we took off the month of June, spend time with the family, enjoying the summer and stuff like that. So kicking back up now in July and got a couple of really good guests coming up in the future and some really good topics. And so maybe some returning guests. So make sure you guys stay tuned, subscribe so you guys are keep updated on the guests and this podcast, and as well as my regular recorded stuff that I do with my collection, just showing you guys the process that we take and stuff like that. Other than that, we have babies on the ground, 2024 babies, some really cool projects, all that stuff. We still have some 2023 babies available, but those are, going pretty quick here in the last couple of weeks as well. So a lot of males that are basically ready to breeding size. So if you're looking for a male that you need maybe plug in to a project this year, or a male that's going to be 100% ready for breeding season next year in January, then I got a couple of, lavender coral projects, Arctic Mai Tai stuff, sable, within the realms of those projects, and just some really nice red albino stuff, purple line albino that we have, heads and stuff. So go take a look at our morph market in the link description below if you guys are interested in that stuff. And then within the next probably 2 weeks, we'll be posting 2024 babies that will have already about 8 to 10 feedings available and, ready to go to a new home. And then the last weekend of July, which is July 27th, 28th, we're going to be vending in Repticon Orlando. So make sure you guys go and check us out there. If you guys are looking for anything specific, especially I know I've had a couple people ask me for the purple line red albinos that I have from last year. I produced a lot more this year just because that was a popular demand. And a lot of people, even after they were all gone, will start asking for them. So if you guys are in that show and looking for that stuff, we're going to definitely have it available there. Another big thing that we have going on in our channel, and is happening this Sunday at 1 p.m., if I'm not wrong, we're going to do a live event, a giveaway. We hit the 1,000 subscriber mark here on our YouTube. So I said when we did, we're going to do a live giveaway. And we have, I'm personally giving a 2023 double head sable toffee belly male. So again, basically ready to breed, or is going to be, or be, if you already did your breeding season, will be ready to breed next year, or if you're starting, a collection, a really good giveaway there. And then we have a couple of our partners and sponsors that are going to do a giveaway or discount code to their products and their websites too. So make sure you guys subscribe, go check the video. That's going to be the 2024 Western Hognose giveaway video. Go check how to enter the giveaway, and subscribe to our channel and follow us on Instagram. That's one of the two main things you need to do. So make sure you guys go do that. And, let's say hi to a couple people that we have here. I see we have a couple newer people that I don't recognize. So if you're here new, thank you again. So we have Green Line Morse. Thanks for joining us tonight. Chad 2, thanks for joining us tonight, man. Thanks for the support. S&K Exotic, Stefan, thanks for joining. I really appreciate the support. Casey, Golf Reptiles Creations, thanks for joining us, man. Thank you for the subscription to the membership to our YouTube channel as well. So we have that as well. We have a YouTube channel, the subscription, support our channel and support our efforts here that we keep putting on good content for you guys. Hopefully it's good and you guys like it. Will CNC, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. Herpin Harbins, Alicia, and Josh, thanks for joining us tonight. I've had them on our podcast before, and really good people. So, before we get to our guest, I want to bring up and shout out our sponsors and partnerships for tonight, and we're going to get to it now if I can find it. There we
I
go.
want to take this moment to mention and thank our sponsors and partnerships. Sea Serpents is our official sponsor, known for their exceptional customer service and top quality. They offer a wide range of PVC racks and incubators designed to meet the needs of every reptile enthusiast. Their products are built with durability and efficiency in mind, ensuring your reptiles have a safe and comfortable environment. Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional breeder, Sea Serpents has the perfect solution for your growing collection. Want to take your reptile husbandry and record keeping to the next level? Use our exclusive code CLOVER60 for a free 60-day trial of Husbandry Pro, an all-in-one reptile tracking software that will streamline your reptile care routine. When it comes to shipping or receiving our reptiles, Ship Your Reptiles is our top choice. Trust them to handle your reptiles with care. Use code CLOVERS15 to save on your next shipment. Feeding your reptiles a varied diet is essential, and Reptilinks offers raw, whole-prey reptile food trusted by the best zoos and keepers in the industry. Use code CLOVER to save $5 on your next order. Thank you for your support.
Guys, thanks for joining us tonight again. Any of the sponsor or partnerships that we have, these companies we personally use, the racks, you guys can see them right behind me. One of the best racks, especially when you're starting off. You can piece them little by little. Chris, it's a great guy, great customer service, great support of US ARC as well. So that being said, make sure you guys support US ARC Florida. Go get yourself a membership. The link in the description below as well. So without further ado, let's bring on our guest. Welcome, Shane. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Getting back in the saddle after taking a month off. So, change up a little bit of the 2024 sponsor. So fumbled around with that, but keep the show going, Bless you.
We all need a break sometimes from social media, and it's definitely a grind.
For sure. It is, man. And hitting that 1,000 subscriber mark was definitely a grind. I know you do your social media, your YouTube, your Instagram and stuff like that. So you know what it takes to get to those numbers and subscribers and all that stuff. It's a nonstop work.
So, yeah, congrats on the 1,000 subs, man.
Thank you.
That's like the hardest hill is that 1,000, man. Like I don't know why, but it just YouTube. I mean, unless you do something crazy or something, but YouTube's a slower climb than all the other platforms, from my experience.
Yeah. When I've heard from like the people that have the bigger channels that have been doing it for a long, long time, what I've heard is like 5-6 years ago was a lot easier, it didn't take as much to get to those levels. But now there's so much reptile animal content out there that there's definitely a competition out there. There's definitely a grind. So the algorithm, if your content's not hitting, then YouTube's not putting it out to the viewers. So it is a grind, but to us too, it wasn't just the numbers. Is just to me it is recording our process, our journey and stuff like that. And I tell people I'm brand new. I'm still pretty new to breeding reptiles and stuff like that. So my videos, my pre-recorded stuff that I do with my collection, a lot of it's what I do. If people want to take a little bit from here and there, then for sure, there's multiple ways to skin a cat too. So there's different ways to do things. Before we get into this, because they're in here and stuff like that, I wanted to give a big honorary moment to Tom Harbin that we lost last Thursday. Great guy, such a role model for the reptile community. Anytime you talk to him, you're around him, you couldn't help but smile, and the knowledge he had what was really great. So big my heart out to his family, Alicia, John, Josh, and his family, stuff like that. So I want to take that moment tonight and tell them we're thinking about him and their family. So if anything, reach out to us.
Yeah, my heart goes out to the whole family. Josh and Alicia are like literally 15 minutes down the road from me. So I mean, it hit Tom for sure. And Tom was a great guy. I wish I would have got to know him better, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I try. I was gonna bring him on the podcast a few months ago, and scheduling didn't work out. And I was gonna reach back out to him this month, and things happen sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely a great loss to his family and to the reptile community.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Big hit to the reptile community and the family. So.
for sure. So, let's get into you, man. Small Town Exotics. So, basically, the early beginnings of your reptile journey and stuff like that. Give us an overview of that.
So like the name says, I always knew I wanted to do more than just like one species. So that's why I'm Small Town Exotics, So I kind of hit the social media side with ball python stuff, but since the beginning I've had hognose, and like right after that my kids got leopard geckos too. So I've always had like hognose, leopard geckos, and ball pythons going here. We slimmed way down on leopard geckos though, and I've actually got some king snakes, just a few though, and then I got boa sigmas growing up. Those are like more of a long-term thing. They take longer to get up to size and everything. But yeah, man, I've been kind of multi-species. I started like the Small Town Exotic thing 2019. So I started building. I used to travel a lot for work, and I got a job where I'd be home every night, and I'd had a big reptile collection in the early 2000s, like one of all kinds of species. And then I learned then though, like, well, that really didn't do me any good. I couldn't do anything but like one of each. So I got a ball python, a genetic stripe, and the rest is history, man. I got the fever, and
yeah, man,
started buying.
Once that fever hits you, there's no way to to get rid of it. And and it's for some of us is a great journey, and some people come in and out of it. Hopefully, we can sit down 10 years from now and revisit this conversation, and see where we're at, right?
Right.
I think that's the biggest, what's a milestone in this, reptile or just animal breeding in general is longevity. Staying for a long time, you can create a really crazy combo, discover new genetics, but then and you've seen it, in the ball python. We've seen it now in the hognose too. Where like some people discover certain things and they're no longer around.
Right.
Longevity wasn't there, right? So that's one of my goals one day is the longevity. And I think there's certain steps that people can take at the beginning to ensure that longevity in the forefront. How many years now breeding?
This is my 5th breeding season.
Okay. And
fifth breeding season with ball pythons, and this is my 4th with hognose.
Okay. Oh, so pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So ball pythons, I did get some proven breeders my first year, and then just to like get my feet wet and try it out and make sure I could do it and I was comfortable with it. The hognose though, I started out with hatchlings and started growing them up.
Yeah, and you know what? In the hognose world, it's definitely harder to find proven breeders, and if they're good breeders right now, the hognose world is so young that people are keeping them still. Even if it's single gene stuff, they're still be able to produce and stuff. So it's a little harder to come by good breeders.
Yeah.
So, okay, 5 years, 4 years. Yeah, 5 in ball pythons, 4 years in hognose. With the, you named your business and your name, Small Town Xotics, because you said you wanted multiple species and stuff like that.
Right.
Where does small town come from?
That's actually a lyric in a Guns N' Roses song. And I grew up in a small town in California. It was kind of like isolated from the rest of Southern California.
Okay.
So like I'm still into Guns N' Roses, but like when I was a kid, that was like, I don't know. It just rang something true to me. So I just kind of kept that and then added exotics on it. And that was me.
Cool. Yeah. And why not EX instead of?
All right. Well, that's a good one, man. Not many people ask that one. So back when I was building social media, there was this other thing. I don't know, something was going on with Facebook. They were starting bands, and there was this other social media platform called MeWe. And when I went to type in Small Town Xotics on there with an E on it, it said it was like a restricted word. Like it was like, it might be like adult content or something like that. So if I took the E off, then it accepted it. So I just thought, well, man, that might be like a trend. So I'm just going to start, like, I was just like getting my logo together and everything right at the same time. I'm like, I'm just going to drop the E. And then that way, if any other platform does that, then I'm like already ahead of the game. And then, so.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, and that's a good point too, because we never know where these social media platforms and rules are going to hit, because they're always changing. You know, there's different, you know, what's it called, lobbyists and lobbying for certain things where it's going to change. So you never know where the exotics, you know, might become a thing where it gets, you know, banned or, you know,
like
harder.
Restricted word or something, or it gets flagged or whatever, you know. So that's how that happened.
That's interesting. That's cool.
And what's funny is that little MeWe platform, I never see nothing about it after a few months after that either. I was like, oh, well, that was a flash in the pan, but it's already got the logo and everything going now. So
you just gotta, you gotta dive into it now. Yeah, for sure. You know, and it's funny because like I've thought about my name, you know, and I think, you know, starting off, either you 100% commit to it, or there's variances, and that's either way. I think it's okay. You know, companies evolve, people evolve, and stuff like that. And I've thrown the idea around of doing like Clover's reptiles and exotics, just because I never know. What if one day like the mammal or, you know, some other bug bites me, and I'm like, okay, I want to do this now, right?
Right.
Not limit myself to just reptiles. But right now it's reptiles, you know. So, you know,
I don't really plan on branching out of reptiles, but I mean, I like to just be like covered, you know.
for sure, man. Yeah. So, you know, starting with you know 5 years ago, what made you decide to actually breed?
So, man, it kind of, like I said, it kind of happened fast, but I was, when I was traveling, I was listening to a lot of audio only type podcasts, you know, through my phone while I was driving. And, once I got a ball python, then I started getting the fever, and I just like typed into the Apple podcast thing, like ball python podcast or something real generic. And then, ball shit and snakes and the fat man popped up. So like I blew through all of their audio content, and then one of my kids said something about like, check it out on YouTube, Dad. And I never really like messed with YouTube. And then my mind was blown. Because like I was into reptiles in the early 2000s, and there were some morphs, but not like really that much, you know. And then once I discovered YouTube, I was like, man, this stuff is insane now. And then that's when I really got the fever. But like through the audio stuff though, like Sean Bradley and Chris Eaton, they were talking about like, I was like, man, these guys, like, it sounds like a legitimate business, you know? I'm like, people are taking it serious. It's like more than just like a hobby or just keeping. And that just sparked my curiosity. And then, like I said, once I found YouTube, it was all over. I went from like 1 snake to 30 snakes in a month, literally.
Wow. That's a big jump.
Yeah.
That's a big jump for that. And with the breeding in mind, did you think about, I'm just going to try it out, or did you already have the business mindset on it?
Yeah, well, like I said, I got some proven breeder ball pythons back then. I was like, well, I do want to try it out before I get like too far invested. And I blew that out of the water. I just kept on investing, but like that was my intent. And then once I bred and everything, I was like, yeah, I got this. I like it. Like I have a passion for it. Like I said, I'd already had reptiles when I was younger, and I grew up catching reptiles in the wild and stuff too. So like the passion and the love for the animals was already there. And then I did have my own business outside of reptiles. So I did bring that mindset in too from the beginning. So it just all kind of made sense. And then I just started pushing on social media. And like my whole thing was like kind of like how you said about yours. It's just like I don't know anything. Like my first year on YouTube, I was like open. Like I don't know anything. I'm just bringing you along with my journey. Good,
Yeah.
bad, the ugly, everything. Like just let's celebrate the successes and let's figure out what we did wrong and let's just
Yeah.
do all the things together.
No, I think that's, for me at least, my point of view. I think that's a good track to do, because I think people like to see that genuine, that from the beginning to watching 5 years later and stuff like that, and see where you're at. People like to watch that process,
Yeah.
than just uh, you know giving information just because you already have it, or otherwise giving false information too, right?
Right.
Acting like what you're talking about, other than this is what I did, this is the results.
Right.
I'm a big believer that nothing trumps experience.
Yeah. And people relate to like, of course, there's like the Jeff Galewoods and the Justin Canovas out there, and like everyone, like, oh, yeah, rightfully so, like looks to them like, wow, like they're the pinnacle of their particular niches and everything. But people can relate a lot to somebody that's like just doing it from the beginning, and they're like, wow, like this is like something I could do too, and they just like relate and get on board.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. And then with how many at the beginning when you first started, how many females did you breed? Do you remember?
So my first year, I don't remember how many I paired, but I had 8 clutches of ball pythons my first year. And hognose I've always kept small. So the following year, I had 2 clutches. I've pretty much been into like the 2 to 4 clutch a year with hognose. Next year is gonna be a little bit bigger though, because I've been building it, and now like next year is gonna be bigger.
Okay. That's good.
But how hognose they throw a lot of wild cards at you. Yeah. Like you think, like I thought I was going to have a lot this year, and like just a lot of stuff just didn't pan out, man.
Yeah. Same thing for us, man. We added another 4 females to the roster this year for breeding. And we had some slug outs. We had some females that laid 5 eggs and stuff like that. And then this is and I think what happened too with us is I didn't feed enough with doing shows, taking care of the babies. I didn't up that feed to do second clutches, and I didn't get any second clutches this year.
Oh wow.
So it was very interesting, where last year I had like 90% of my females get second clutches.
Right.
So I'm chalking that up to be either not enough food to ramp it back up on that quick turnaround, or either they're taking a down year. We'll see. Once I have couple more years, and I can really see an average or see what happens with it.
Yeah. I had 2 females actually go this year. They both double clutched. A super Arctic female, both clutches were great. I got like 20 something hatchlings from her. I had one of Kevin from Mutant Reptiles, his female here. She double clutched. We got 1 baby out of the first clutch that made it, and the second clutch was all slugs. So 2 clutches, and there's 1 baby out of it,
Yeah. And then you get a female that might lay you 20 eggs, 1 clutch. So it's such a variety sometimes. The variance on how many eggs you're gonna get. Last year I had a female that laid 18 perfect good eggs, both clutches. And everything hatched. So it's like, man, from 1 female there, 30 something eggs, right?
Right.
So it like you said, with hognose, there's a give and take, and there's also the egg binding, females
eating the eggs,
eating eggs, females eating males, so there's a whole bunch of other wild cards you throw into the mix with the hognose.
There's a lot more of them with hognose versus like ball pythons. Like ball pythons, for the most part, most of the time they're laying good clutches. You'll have some slug outs every now and then, but they'll never eat their eggs, and they're never going to eat the male.
Very true. Yeah. So it's interesting because last year I didn't have no issues with egg eatings. This year I switched over all my my breeders and my holdbacks to cocoa core and sand mix.
Right.
So, I usually, with the Aspen, I was putting in a lay box with the cocoa core and allowing that. So my mindset was, well, the whole bin is technically a lay bin now that I have cocoa core and stuff like that. Well, some females laid perfectly fine, but then started eating their eggs.
Right.
So then I threw the lay bins in and they didn't have any issues. So it's very interesting to see that.
That's a good tip, because I do the whole tub is like the lay
Mhm.
box thing too. But last year my super Arctic girl ate 3 of her eggs. I think
Mhm.
about 3. Like, it was Mother's Day. She was in the middle of laying. I
Yeah.
pulled like 8 or 9 away from her. We went out to Mother's Day dinner, and when I came back, the ones that she should have laid were not, like, the lump was up in the stomach area. I'm like, she ate them, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I was glad I pulled what she had laid before we left, though. I was like,
yeah.
something told me, because she's one of those like real hungry females. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think I should pull these before we go out and eat,
Yeah. And it's funny because that day, that female, I was expecting to lay within a day or two. I get a call, one of my buddies, that he's doing the same thing. First year, he did the cocoa core mix, and we both came to a conclusion together. It's like, no, we're not going to put lay boxes. The whole thing's a lay box, technically. He
Right.
calls me, and I'm on the couch just watching TV. He goes, hey, man, put lay boxes in. The females are going to eat their eggs. I go, shit. Right there. I get up and I go check. I got a female about to start laying. It was about like 10 in the morning. So I come in and she already had done finished laying. And as I come in, she's chomping down on the egg.
Ah.
And a female that has never eaten her eggs before. So
So having that little bit of separation keeps them from eating the eggs.
yeah. Except, if you've noticed, and what I've noticed too is once the females are, most of the time when the females are done laying, their eggs are safe, they'll crawl out of that lay bin and basically separate themselves. So there's a little bit of a security.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing that you can guarantee to do for the female not to eat them.
Right.
But a little bit, here and there, because there's some females. There's people that say once a female gets a taste of the eggs, that they're always going to be egg eaters.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man.
What's fun about hogs is like versus ball pythons. I always make this comparison since I do both.
Yeah.
But like ball pythons, there is a ton. There's like too much information out there. But hognose, it's still kind of like the Wild West, man. And there's a lot of people that do it like a lot of different ways and stuff. And I've read all the books from Kevin, and I've messaged Kevin and Rhodes, and I met Jeff and Josh and Alicia, and like you'll get all these different variations of stuff. It's cool, man. It keeps you on your toes. I like it a lot.
Yeah. And there's still a lot of experiments going on with the hognose, the breeding, the genetics, all that stuff, because it's so new still, at least in the scale that we're in now, right? Hognose, of course, there's a handful of people that used to have them around the hobby. They've been around the hobby for years, but on the scale that we're breeding them now, I say maybe 10 years, if that, around that. So there's still a lot of things to learn, because it's only 10. Let's say maybe 10 good breeding seasons with a good amount of breeders breeding and sharing information. So I think we're still infancy, learning, discovering new genetics. I think that's one of the coolest things of it too.
Oh yeah.
So
for sure.
With the and a lot of these questions, you can answer for both ball pythons and hognose and stuff like that. With your breedings and stuff like that, what are your favorite genetics you're working with on both species?
For ball pythons, my main project's genetic stripe clown, that double recessive, and I've added other recessives and codoms, and that's like I think that's a never-ending project, basically. For hognose, though, I really like super Arctics, like as a project, and I love reds, like so much because there is no reds in ball pythons. So to me, reds like really catch my eye, and I know a lot of people in the hognose world like love lemon ghost, and I ain't throwing no shade at it or whatever, but I see yellow all the time in other species. So to me, I'm just like, oh yeah. I mean, I like the Woma pattern of that project, but I'm like, I'd rather see like a red background with the Woma than
Very true.
I have lemon ghost and stuff here too, but I really like the reds. And right now I'm like messing around in the snow project, but and a little bit of storm cloud building and stuff like that. But yeah, I like the red. And that's something that I like in the hognose is polygenics, all the line breeding stuff is
Mhm.
like a thing there, so
Yeah.
it's
I've thought about that with the ball python albino gene, right?
right.
Where it got benched so fast because of how many things were developing so quick. What if somebody would have really bred and line bred the albino gene to be more red in the ball python world? You know?
I've thought about those same things too, and I just think that with ball pythons, man, the genetics move so fast, and there's so many that
Mhm.
like if somebody was gonna, I mean, there is some kind of like line breeding to an extent, like
Yeah.
Ozzy Boyd's with the Orange Dream, like that's gotten better over the years because that's his main thing, and he's just
Mhm.
worked it forever. But I just think like if somebody was to like take the time and work a gene, like line breed it, you might get left behind, man, because like
Yeah.
the market moves so fast with ball pythons, man. It's like, especially with shed testing now, it's just like moving
Yes.
at light speed.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's the correct answer. It's just if somebody would have done that would have been a very niche project, and maybe it would have came to fruition, but maybe it would have been just like a hobby project that it would have just died out, or not, especially line breeding things. You have to have a large stock, a
Yeah.
decent amount of the different lines that have the similar characteristics to be able to breed out cross, breed back in and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's what it was. That's a high cost of feeding, taking care of animals, purchasing animals, stuff like that.
A
Where
lot of
maybe at
time.
a lot of time.
A
So
lot of
maybe
time.
one day it wouldn't have panned out and it would just been, a loss at the end.
And I'm sure anyone that chose to do that with ball pythons, they would achieve the look they're looking for, but
Yeah.
would they
At what cost? Yeah.
yeah. Like, I mean, all right, so this inchy, say they did inchy, like this inchy looks better than most. All right, $50 more, like, all right,
Hmm.
you just spent 10 years perfecting it, and you're like, all right, mine are worth $50 more.
Yeah. 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 And that's what it is, about a 10-year project to really selectively line breed something like that.
Yeah, like you said, the outcrossing, because you can only inbreed for so long before you got to
Mhm.
bring in other stuff and going back, and then rack space, and man, and the
Yeah.
generational time. Like everyone says, like, oh, you can breed a female ball python in 2 to 3 years. Yeah, mostly, but I got girls here that I bought in 2019 that still haven't produced.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
talking about that, what's your average breeding age for males and females on both species?
um, so hognose is faster from I mean, my sample size is way small compared to
Hmm.
like hognose enthusiasts. But when I buy a hognose as a hatchling, I don't brumate them their first year. I keep them up, and then their second winter I brumate them. And so far, my girls have bred after their first brumation. That's how it's
Okay.
worked for me.
Yeah.
I guess I have a couple here that I could see right now they're not growing at the rate of the rest of them. That's not going to fly. But
Hmm.
with my little sample size, that's how it's been. So, but like with female ball pythons, man, I've had some breed at like under 2 years. Like they grew up and they were bull wrapping. They did all the things. That's like a rare exception now. Most of the time, it's like 2 to 4 years, 3 year being average. But like I said, you'll have some outliers that breed sooner and some that like I got 5 year olds that haven't bred. So,
Yeah.
and then males with ball pythons, I've had them breed like real young, but then it's always the important ones, like the high dollar ones. They don't want to cooperate, and they end up taking like 2 years. So
I hear that. Yeah. You see, and that's interesting with the ages and stuff like that. Because a lot of things, sometimes I get asked the question, at what weight do you breed? And to me, that's such a variance. On especially with hognose,
yeah,
right? I think the age is the best calculation of when they're ready to breed. Um, and same thing, I've bred, females that ends up being like 2.5 years old after brumation and stuff like that. So two brumations basically. Um, and then I've had the older females, and that now are older are doing better. So my next round of females that I'm growing up, I've decided I'm gonna wait till their third brumation season.
All right.
And I brumate the same year. If they're hatchlings I produce, especially, I brumate them that same year.
All right.
And it's very interesting because I've had this conversation with my other hognose breeder friends. Is that, you know, the stuff that I've brumated, that I had my holdbacks that I produced and I brumated, compared to what I kept out of brumation that was for sale, my holdbacks are actually doing better in size and growth than the stuff that didn't get brumated.
I did that same experiment this year. I
Mm-hmm.
took 2 of my holdbacks that I'd hatched in 23,
Yeah.
brumated them with the rest, and brought them out, and they're bigger than all the rest, just like you're saying. I was like, man, it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
So like all this time, like all these years, I've been keeping them up and feeding them. I'm like, maybe I should have been brumating them, you know?
Yeah. So they're growing good size, you know. And somebody was like, oh, maybe you're feeding them. I was like, no, I feed them exact same schedule as my for sale, and because they're the same age, so why do different feeding schedules, right?
Right.
So I was like, I feed them exact same size, same times. I go, I'm not feeding more, but I have a female that is, you know, and right, there's the outliers, but she's already close to, I say, about 100 grams, you know. And for a hognose female that quick, it's pretty big, right? So I could just imagine 3 brumations, her size and stuff like that, which I'm not about the weight. If she grows really long and has like 250, 300 gram, great. You know, what I tell people with that have ball pythons and then get into hognose was, when they ask about the size or what a look of a hognose should look, I was like, the belly should be flat all the time. You know, they should have that squared off belly instead of the round belly that we're, you know, ball pythons or boas are used to and stuff like that.
It's kind of like I always picture in my head kind of like a loaf of bread.
Yep.
You know, you like kind of want a flat bottom and then a round top, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then if she's all the way around, she's either obese or she's gravid.
Yeah, correct. That's very true. Yeah, so that's a really good, you know, I'll tell people that's just a good sign, good metric to be like, okay, it's a good weight. You know, their what's it called? Their spine's not showing and stuff like that. Their ribs aren't showing. But another thing too, I tell people is like, generally I like to feed my animals if they're not breeding, right? If the females are breeding, you're giving them a lot of extra food. But 10 to 15% of their body weight, to me, it's a good metric of what size to feed them or how much to feed them and stuff. So, but you know, long-winded now is I decided that I'm going to do that experiment where now I'm going to keep those females. I'm going to brumate them. I'm going to wait after the 3rd brumation and see what the production is their first round, right? And see if it makes a difference if I wait an extra year or not.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's good to try other things and you know, just like brumating the hatchlings, you know, like I said, I did the same experiment and I'm like, wow, I've been wrong. You know, I was wrong all this time. I was doing extra work. I could have been on a better vacation, you know.
100%. You know, that's one you know, positive I tell people about hognose. If you get into breeding hognose, is you get a 2-month long vacation.
It's great.
You know, you put them in the fridge, or, you know, your wine cooler, and you have, you know, at least your breeders, your holdbacks, you don't have anything for 2 months, you know. And if you have hatchlings for sale, stuff like that, you know, they can go, you know, a week or 2 without, you know, a feeding. You just feed them right before you leave. And I tell people that are looking to buy, like at a show, that's one of my like selling points is that, you know, families that travel, oh, but what if we have to travel? I go, no worries. You know, what I do is if I'm traveling for a week or 2, I'll feed either if I'm traveling early in the morning, the night before, I'll make sure they're good full belly, you know, full cup of water, feed them. And when I'm back, they're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no need to worry about feeding every day, or if you skip a week, you know, there's all the positives about that.
Yeah. I was kind of having a conversation similar to that with a coworker. She has like a couple of reptiles, like a ball python and a frog or something. And then she was like, you want to take my ball python? I was like, no, not really. I mean, I have a clothes collection or whatever, you know. And she's like, yeah, but my kids just don't spend time with it. And it needs to have somebody snuggling it. And I'm like, No, it doesn't actually. It's perfectly happy being left alone. That's what's good about reptiles, man.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
ball python doesn't want to be snuggled, man. Just it's good. Feed it once a week, change its water. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah. They're to me, they're still, I'm gonna say wild animals, but they're not domesticated, right?
Right.
So they don't have that. I mean, we see cats. Cats are similar to that too. The cats are on their terms,
Right.
you know.
It-
I tell my kids, this is the first time we own a cat, and my little one, she always wants to grab it and hug it, and so I was like, leave the cat alone. You gotta let him come to you.
yeah.
You know,
The cat will let you know when it wants something.
for sure, for sure. And same thing for reptiles, right? If I open a bin and I'm looking at a female and she's hissy that day, if I'm not feeding her or if I don't have to handle her, then I'll leave her be.
Right.
They're giving you a warning for a reason, right? They're already being defensive or being, giving you signs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
With the breedings and stuff like that, you have sent me a picture of your favorite production.
Oh yeah. That's like
Yeah.
my That's
And
my.
explain that to me because I'm not a ball python guy. So what was I looking at?
So that is a yellow belly, spot nose, calico clown. So like I had a calico looking gene just pop out in my collection. So that's why that particular ball python, that is like the best of that I've produced so far. So that's
Okay.
3 or 4 years in the making to get it to that level. So it's got one recessive. It's not like super crazy, but it's just like my own little sentimental, that was the animal I wanted to hit and I hit it. I needed it in a male, but it's a female, but I still hit it. So I'm just growing her up to breed her at this point. She's just chilling in, her little penthouse. But
yeah. Do you still have animals from your first breeding season? Did you keep anything back?
Yeah. I got a Batman girl, ball python. And then hognose, I don't though.
Okay.
And we can go down that story if you want to go. So
Yeah.
so like when my first batch of hognose that I bought, they were all like real picky eaters. And then I did eventually get them up to size and all the things, and I bred them. And then like everything they produced were like none of them wanted to eat. And I was like, man, I'm ready to throw in the towel with hognose. And I actually like started thinking, I'm like, man, I remember especially like the super conda albino male. He was like, I was assist feeding him mouse tails for months before he would take. And then I just started thinking about that. I'm like, I wonder if it's the parents, like because they were all like that. And then I ran it by Josh and Alicia at a show here.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, try, because we don't have that many problems, and so try turning over your breeding stock. And that's what I did. Now I have all these great eating adults, and sure thing, man. Like all their babies, like I might have one that like doesn't take the first time. So it was like definitely in my stock from the beginning. And luckily I persevered and made it through it and like problem solved and tried some other things, how we're talking about how we experiment and all those things. And yeah, so my original breeders and everything to do with that, I've since sold off as pets. So I've turned over my hognose stock over the past 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very interesting because I've said it before in my videos and on podcasts. It's like one of the best parts about breeding your own animals is you get to pick what you want to keep.
Yeah.
And for me, if they're taking unscented pinkies from the first offering, they're already qualified as a keeper, right?
Right.
If they have the genetics, they have the coloring, that just adds to the list. Yes.
Yeah.
If there's a picky eater and stuff like that, but it's the all gene animal that I want to hit, I might keep it and try it out. Hopefully it works out. But if there's another one that eats better, then that's gonna stay.
Right.
Not saying that I'm putting out all my, my non-feeders and stuff like that. But the stuff that catches my eye and that has those extra qualities are definitely, you start making a list. Okay, this one is possibly a keeper. This one,
Yeah.
And one thing that I did last year was I think I was too quick and too excited to make my first, sale and stuff like that where I sold some stuff off that I wish I would have kept.
Yeah.
Have you ever been through that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens to everyone, I think,
Yeah.
You're like, well, maybe I should have held it longer, or but it's like, oh, it's a buddy who needs it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can't keep them all though either. So
yeah,
I mean, you really gotta like choose. I mean, I do what I call a snake bank. So like, as I'm hatching, whatever species I'm hatching at that point in the season, it's like that one catches my eye. It checks all the boxes. It eats the way I like, all those things. I'm like, I put it over in a holdback section, and I'll sell off all the other stuff. And then I already know, like, I held back too much. I can't hold back this much. And then when I'm done producing with that species for the season, I really go through, all right, like, what do I really need? I can't hold back, 20 of these things, and then I start making cuts. By that time, those animals are bigger and stuff too, and they're actually genetically superior to the other ones I sold off earlier in the year. So that's why it's the snake bank. It's like, all right, I got more income and financial stuff going later on. But
no, and that's a good process, because I think, especially when you first produce in your first couple of years, you're like, all right, how do I decide what to keep?
Yeah.
And it's if you keep everything you like, then you won't sell much, right? Because I go through feeding, I was like, man, this one looks really nice, but I don't need another Conda albino male in my rack right now, right? Like, and stuff like that. Is there, like, in in hognose, the Arctic gene, like the extreme red albino stuff that you were talking about, right? Some of that stuff, once it starts shedding, it gets better, or there's a major change.
I'm going through the Arctic stuff right now, man.
Yeah.
So I have my super Arctic. There's like, so obviously everything's Arctic. So there's like your average looking Arctic, and then she's got two different ones she's throwing off. Like one that's like super saturated white, and the saddles and everything are like real light cream colored. And then there's another one with a real white background and a dark contrast saddle. And I'm like, God, which ones am I going to hold back? So like right now, I'm like, I'm just going to hold them both back, because they're going to age, and so I'm like, I really got to hold these back for some time to see what look I want to keep for my Arctic stuff going forward.
For sure.
I like both looks.
Yeah.
But how are they going to age? Is the high contrasting one going to age better, or is that light one going to age better? I mean, it might be all washed out by the time it's an adult.
Yeah. Or there could be a drastic change within one shed, and you're like, okay, now I don't want this one, right?
And that's what I think of too, because like the way super Arctics are born super dark, and then they change to what they are. I'm like, man, maybe the single Arctic could be changing a lot too. I don't know, so
yeah. I had this that happened with the Arctic Sable toffee male this year. I wasn't gonna keep any males from that pairing because I have other males that are either double visual or whatever it is. I don't need a really one right now. And it was up for sale for a few months, and I think about like last November, some of that. It went from one shed to another. It looked like just a standard Arctic Sable and stuff like that. And then it shed, and I looked at it, and now it has a full black, like, top part of it. It's fully black, like a full black stripe. You can't even see and it's not condo or anything like that, so you can't even see the pattern. So I was like, man, that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna keep them just to see what happens when I breed them.
See, and you wouldn't have said that if it wasn't sitting around in your rack for a while.
Correct. Yeah, if somebody would have picked it up, then somebody would have had it in their in their collection, which great for them, right?
So what I'm picking up from you is I should just hold everything back for a year.
So this is my process this year. The stuff that I want to keep back, I'm gonna wait 2 or 3 sheds minimum, growth sheds, and then decide what I'm gonna let go. Right now I have a whole clutch. It's a triple head Sable Xanthic toffee bellies.
Right.
And the males RBE too. So I want to see how that RB develops in certain of them. So I'm gonna be feeding 15 babies for a while to see how they develop. Because I want to keep a handful of females and then maybe 1 or 2 males too from that stuff to start off that project. And then I have Purple Line, Extreme Red, Arctic Albino Anacondas, Xanthics. Same thing, they're all Arctic, they're all Purple Line, Extreme Red. Both parents are Purple Line. The mother was Extreme Red from Jeff Galewood.
Right.
So she's really, really red. So I was like, let me see what happens after a few sheds, because I'm gonna keep a 1.1 from there, and then the rest I'll let go. But which ones do I keep, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'll be doing my reds next year, and I got like Purple Line, Extreme Red, and I got Raging Red all mixed in. So I'm like, man, I was already thinking ahead too. Like, I'm probably gonna have to hold all those back for a while to see how they develop. Like how the reds come in and what exact look I'm gonna go with. Going forward after that. So.
And also, what I've noticed too, with talking about like the super Arctic stuff, and I was having this conversation today with someone else, was I've seen that certain super Arctics throw better high expression single Arctics genes too. So like, almost like that concentration of the super Arctic, it gives a better single gene Arctic expression of certain things. So it's very interesting to see that. Or you go everything super Arctic, because sometimes to ID Arctic from a Arctic to Arctic parent, or one Arctic parent to non-Arctic on non-visual, like normal colors, or even albino, sometimes it's pretty difficult to ID that stuff.
Yeah, man, Arctic, it's got a lot of variability. I ain't gonna lie, like sometimes when it hits, you're like, that is for sure. And then other ones I'll see listed, I'm like, man, I'm not even sure that looks Arctic to me. I mean, they say it is, I guess so, but I mean, I don't know,
Yeah. You start wondering, and then it sheds a couple times. They're like, okay, now it looks, or maybe it's like, okay, it's definitely not Arctic, right?
Right.
So
that's why I got my super Arctic girl when I did. I was like, I really like Arctic, what it does, what it can do in combos. I like super Arctic as its own thing too. So that's why I was like, I'm just going to start with super Arctic, and then I could start seeing all the variations. But there was ones that she hatched, like when you put them side by side, I was like, if she was a single Arctic, I would call this one Arctic, but this one I wouldn't. But she's a super Arctic, so I know this one over here is,
Correct.
So I'm like, it's good though. I'm starting with the super, so I can see all the variability from the beginning.
Yeah. So one thing I was thinking is like, maybe one day, years down the line, I'll just have super Arctics just to be able to guarantee it 100% all the time,
Right.
Because there's, maybe unless you're like Jeff Galewood and stuff like that, or you've had 10 years of breeding these Arctics, sometimes, I'll double question an Arctic, and I might not sell it as Arctic because I'm not 100% sure, and maybe somebody gets a free gene or whatever it is. But to me, it was better to sell it as a non-Arctic than as 100%, and it's not, right?
Well, here's something that proves to me there's a lot of variability, because I mean, like you said, Jeff founded the Arctic project, but like I have a POS Arctic from Jeff, so not even he can ID them all the time.
Yeah.
So I mean,
very true. Very true. Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
No. And like you said, the variability, and then, we perceive certain colorations, certain pigments different too.
Right.
So like, okay, this looks Arctic to me, and you hand it to somebody else, no, it's not Arctic, or they tell you, yeah, it's Arctic. It's like, but where?
Right.
So yeah, the Arctic gene color, conversation, it's a long one. It's a back and forth. So
I love it.
Yeah. With your extreme red stuff, you said next year you'll be producing the extreme red stuff.
I was hoping to start it off this year, but the female I was pairing the male to didn't go, so that was one of my wild cards. But yeah, I got one of Jeff's reds, one of his mixes. It's Conda albino, and that thing looks like a candy cane. It's red and white.
Yeah,
it's really red.
Yeah,
but yeah. So I got a bunch of females that have those lines in there, and I got a backup male that has Raging Red. It's a 50-50 extreme Raging Red and stuff. I just want to mix all the reds and still be outcrossing too, but working reds together, And
yeah. Those Raging Reds are pretty cool to see as well. Because even the non-albino stuff it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. It's got a lot of red,
Yeah. So like, I haven't seen many albino Raging Reds that I can think of, actually. So I'll be interested to see what they look like once, more people start mixing them in with extreme reds and Raging Reds together to actually make the visual albinos.
Yeah.
Do you have visual raging red, like albino visual raging reds, or just raging red?
No, the one I got is 50-50 extreme raging red head albino.
Okay.
I basically got him as like a backup male. And speaking of males, what kind of ratio do you keep? You keep like 1-to-1 for your breeders?
Right now I have about some projects that have 1-to-1, but I'm trying to do a 2-to-1.
Right.
2-to-1 with certain, if it's, I say, like the My Type project, if I have a sable het toffee female, I have a toffee belly conda het sable male, and then I have an Arctic sable het toffee female. Het toffee male too. So either way, I can, put him in and still get some kind of results and stuff like that.
That's where the battle goes on in my head, because like ball python is completely opposite.
Yeah.
You're like way heavy on females and only a few males. And I kind of did that with my hognose. So now I'm like, this is my year of buying males.
Yeah. But what's the good part about that is you're growing out your females, and you get a little bit of leeway to be able to reinforce that that male roster, because you get an extra year of leeway on either end for the male and female.
That was my thinking too. And then like it's another year that genetics progress and stuff too. So maybe I get something a little better this year than I would have last year.
Correct. Yeah. You could get a double visual, had something, or that you could have, maybe last year wasn't available out to the public, that that this year you can pick up for sure.
Right. Yeah. And so that's something like on the business side of things. Like I did my initial investment in this whole thing, and the reptiles completely support themselves. So then like all the profit I make is what I use to reinvest. So I only got like X amount every year to reinvest,
Correct.
So I have to like divvy it up. Like, all right, I need to put something over here with ball pythons. And then, all right, I got a good excess this year, so I'm dumping a lot more into hogs. And, it's just all this balancing act.
Yeah. And I can imagine with basically two species trying to figure out that number, okay, how much is going to go to this species, how much is going to go to this species. For sure. Do you have it separated, or it's, you've as a project?
All the money's there. So the separation's mainly in my head, but I know like, all right, ball python wise, like I need one male, because like I produce like good females for myself and stuff too. So that one's rolling. So I don't have to put as much. I'm not buying as many animals in the ball pythons at this point. So
okay, gotcha. So with your collection, what size are your collection right now on both species?
Oh, ball pythons, I'm always anywhere. I'm at my lowest point right now. I'm at the dip. I don't have anything in the incubator. I'm probably at about 120 ball pythons, and then hognose, not counting the hatchlings, I'm somewhere around 15. So it's it's a big size difference,
Yeah. And then with the hognose, how bigger do you see it going?
Man, you know what? I don't know how big. Honestly, I always wrestle with that every year, because I really like the hognose a lot. So like every year it progresses. In fact, I would be bigger with hognose if I didn't do that whole breeder reset thing, I would be bigger. So, but I just plan on kind of just letting it take its course, but I do have more wall space over in their area to add more racks. So like there's room to expand. I actually put my bigger females in the bottom of the ball python rack too. So I gave them some like penthouses. I got clear tubs for them in the bottom. So they got plenty of room. And
What size tubs are those?
Those are the 40 series for freedom breeders. So that would be like a 55 for ARS.
Okay. Yeah, I've had the idea too. Eventually in the future, same thing. I want to get like a ARS or freedom breeder rack and go that size for the females, and see how they do. I think they'll do well.
Yeah, I mean they cruise around, and you know how they're like active and stuff, so they cruise around. And I just got the clear ones because I like my hognose to have a light cycle.
Yeah,
I like they're curious and inquisitive, and they'll look through the plastic and stuff. So.
Yeah,
but that's like something good. That's like with those freedom breeder racks. like I could like if I ever went all hog nose and no ball pythons, I'd still use those racks. I'd just swap out the clear tubs.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good. Good thing to have. You know, you're talking about Kevin Mutant Reptiles. I've been to his place, and he has a. I think I'm not sure. I think he has
He's
an
got
ARS.
ARS.
ARS. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has them clear tubs, and every time I go there, I'm like, man, these things are nice, and they're the bigger. I forget what size tub, but they're bigger than what I have in the 32 quart ones. So it's like I was like, one day I got to pick one of these things up because they're nice to see, like you said, see them cruising around, having the extra space, and just the quality of the tubs and all that stuff is really cool. You know.
Yeah, that's one thing I'll give to ARS. So like, I like Freedom Breeder racks, but like Freedom Breeders clears are actually semi-clear.
So they're frosted,
yeah. Where the ARS, they have those crystal clears.
Yeah, they're the poly somethings. Yeah,
polycarbonate or something. Yeah, they're like basically look like glass, you know.
Yeah. So I really like those. They're really cool. Okay, look, he chimed in. They're the 5540s.
Yeah. So that's a 55. That's the same size as those ball python tubs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They have a shorter version and a longer version. I think it's like 8-inch difference in length.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
And Tom had his in ARS 50s.
50s.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. One day they'll go in there. Did you start with the ARS racks? I mean, with the Freedom Breeder racks, or you did the PVC?
So I started from day one for hatchling, like all the smaller stuff and like where most of the hognose are at, I've always had sea serpents. So shout out to your sponsor on that one. I'm a big sea serpent guy too. Yeah. And then I got some homemade ones for ball python adults made out of melamine. I didn't really like them. Like with the humidity, they start bowing and warping, and it was just a pain in the butt. So back when I started, I was in California, a couple hours away from Freedom Breeder. So I placed my order and just drove up there and picked it up. Didn't have to pay any shipping, and I'm glad I did. Now that I'm over here in the Tennessee, like it costs a lot to get them shipped over here. So I'm like,
you have to wait for a big show or something. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm never letting these go, you know?
Yeah, man, for sure. You know, when talking about shows, do you participate? Do you go out to do shows and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've tried some of the little local shows over here, but I've been vending Tinley twice a year.
Okay.
And then I'm real excited about the AARPE that's going to be. So they had their first one in Denver. It's a plant and exotic show.
Yeah. And they're having theirs in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, they're doing their first one in Charlotte. So I'm signed up for that one. Mm-hmm. I'll do that. And it just moved to September, but I plan on doing that one twice a year too.
Yeah. So
I plan on making that one like my home show, because that's only a 4-hour drive for me, where Tinley's 8 hours, and Tinley changed the rules. So I was subletting at Tinley, so I can't sublet anymore.
Yeah. It seems like they're trying to cut down on that and trying to get more newer breeders in, and all that stuff, be able to get their own tables, because that's another like world on its own too, vending shows and being able to get tables for certain shows and stuff like that. It's a whole process, right? I've heard and one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you on to, because you're a ball python, mainly ball python breeder that now that you also breed hognose, and the two worlds, I think in the last 2-3 years, are starting to merge more and more ball python breeders are getting hognose.
Right.
So I wanted to pick your brain on it. I had the Herpen Hardmans and same thing. They do both as well. And one thing I heard was at a Dallas show was, I'm getting ball pythons. I mean, I'm getting hognose so I can get into Tinley.
Right.
And with, we know how, the ball python market has been.
I'm going to say this right now. Those guys are making me look bad.
I'm hoping, I'm an optimist. I'm hoping that it works out for them and they do right and stuff like that, because as mainly a hognose breeder, I would hate to see that, the market gets dropped because it's a side project or it's just a second thought to be able to get into a show and stuff like that.
Right.
Or the animals, get, massed, sold out to somebody, collections here and there. You know how that goes.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. Like, yeah, I'm with you. So like, I've always, ever since the beginning, even though social media wise, I was like known for ball pythons, but like, I know Kevin from leopard geckos, and then he's since went over into hog nose and stuff. So like, I've always been in all these different little circles and stuff, and I've always liked hog nose. I was screaming it from the rooftops in the beginning, and all the ball python people thought I was crazy. And then some of them started seeing the light. I will say this though, from doing both, like if you were only a ball python breeder and then you just like went heavy into hogs, like you're gonna have your work cut out for you. It's a different ball game, man. Like ball pythons are pretty easy to like take care of a ton of them. Hognose, to me, require more work per tub slot.
Especially with feeding those hatchlings.
Oh yeah,
man, that's the most tedious work I've ever had. Like one by one, and stuff like that. It's scenting, all that stuff.
Yeah, scenting, going back, checking for refusals and all that stuff. You know, like ball pythons are a lot easier on the hatchling side. So I mean, people. And then, like we talked about the breeding side too, there's a lot more wild cards going on and stuff. So it's not a seamless transition. It's not impossible,
correct?
But it's not just be like, oh, now I'm hognose. There's a learning curve there.
For sure. And then I was gonna ask you with your feedings, do you do frozen thawed for hognose and live for ball pythons?
I do frozen thawed for everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on the ball python side, I had a mix. Some of them didn't want to ever take frozen thawed, but I've since sold off all that breeding stock, and it kind of lines up with my hognose theory about the non-eaters and stuff too. So like by making all of my adults frozen thawed eaters, all of their babies take to frozen thawed a lot easier than if they weren't. I've noticed that. So I'm a whole frozen thawed guy.
Nice. That's interesting. Yeah. Because I was going to ask, if you've had those, hatchlings starting live and then switching frozen thawed, but you said it's transferring over from the parents.
Yeah. I mean, some of the ball pythons are harder to get started on frozen thawed, but in the beginning it was hard for me, but I've just developed a science to it. And one thing is too, like now that I'm more experienced, like if that ball python, just like a hognose, like if it doesn't eat its first meal, it's not the end of the world. Try again next week,
Yeah.
Or like with the ball pythons, you don't scent. I mean, you can scent with like a live bedding from something or whatever, but you just try again next week. That's all it is. It's not the end of the world. I used to like, it skipped its first meal, I better run out and get something live for it. It's going to starve to death like my first year. No, it's not. It'll be fine,
Yeah. Guys, if you guys are watching, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. Drop a super chat if you guys are liking the content. And then, so if there's somebody out there that is looking to either transition their live feeders to frozen feeders and start, their hatchlings on frozen feeders especially for ball pythons, any trick or tips that you recommend?
Patience is number one. Like, be patient. The way I do it is I put everything out like roughly 12 hours before in the room. So I got it defrosting in the room, and then I hit it in a tub of hot water for ball pythons for the heat signature and go to town. And like from it, just like defrosting in the room, everyone's on food mode and it works pretty good.
Okay.
For the most part.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's been years that I've kind of turned over my collection though too. So like I said, I think it's just like I have my ball pythons produce animals that are more likely to eat frozen thawed. That would be the best way to put it.
And if because there's always those outliers with certain hatchlings that don't want to take frozen thawed. Is there a certain hatchlings that you've had like a month, 2 months into not feeding and stuff like that? And what's your process at that point?
So yeah, when I get to that like 3 or 4 week range with the ball python, since I carry like the large pinkies and stuff for the hog nose,
Yeah.
I'll slide one of those and assist feed them in their mouth,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll usually take that right away because you get it like right past the crook of their jaw.
Yeah.
And something about having something in their stomach like kicks them into food mode after that. Just like a little bit of something gets them digesting, and then after that they'll take.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sounds, and that's very interesting because I've seen that also with hognose. It's with the scenting. Once you get them on a scent, maybe 2 or 3 feedings, and then they start eating without really quick.
Right.
That being, I have maybe from last year. I think I have one that's still stuck on scent. Came off scent, went back on scent. But everything else quickly came off scent and is eating without perfectly fine. With the hognose, do you have a preferred scent, or do your hognose have a preferred scent that you're doing?
Well, big shout out to Kevin on this one. So I was a big sardine water guy forever, but I tried salmon this year. Man, that's like the lick right there. The pink salmon can juice, the water, that's the lick right there.
Yeah.
And you get to eat a salmon sandwich too, so that's good.
You know what, man? I give it to you because I tried it this year. I said, heck no. I was like, I'm not eating it, man. I wasn't able to take it down. One tip I want to give for people that are have hognose and scent and stuff like that that I did this year is I bought the mini those mini silicone ice cube trays.
Yeah.
And I grabbed the water and I froze it into cubes. So when I feed, I'll just grab like 2 of those mini scents and defrost it. So I'm not like, defrosting this one container over and over again. Or if I'm not, defrosting a whole like regular size, what's it called? Ice cube and wasting it too. And that's worked really well where like, I made one tray of each salmon because I use salmon and sardine are the main things. Toad is like the last resort, but most of them take either sardine or salmon or a mixture of both scents,
right?
As well. And I made a tray of both of those sardine and salmon scents, and I've maybe gone through, I'll say maybe 10 cubes, if that, because it's just enough to wet the nose of the pinky, and they're good. So there's
that's a good tip. I'll have to get some of those because I was using like little tiny deli cups, but then after it defrosts, I'm like, well, I don't want to waste it. And then I got a little mini fridge in here too.
Yeah.
So I like put it in there, but like after 2 days in the mini fridge, mini fridge stinks, man. So I'm like, I'll throw that away. And
yeah. So that's what I did, man. Just put it in Ziploc bags and I'll grab 1 or 2 cubes, defrost it in a little deli cup, and then throw it away. Because same thing. Yeah. You put that in the fridge and it smells quick.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I'm salmon and sardines. This year it was all salmon, and then I got those toad scents from Kevin Rhodes, and I got some that Show Me Kitties made last year.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had to stoop down. I mean, the salmon worked so good this year, but this year I only had 3 that I had to scent.
Okay.
Out of 2 clutches, so that's pretty good. Like out of 20, I think I got 26 right here. So 3 had to scent.
Yeah, I think the same thing with like you're talking about the frozen dog feeder, ball python and stuff like that. Same thing with hognose. You already went through it and turned around your stock and stuff. There's certain clutches that I've had that every single baby eats off the tongs, eats unscented, off the first feeding, and those are the guys that develop the best, are great feeders and stuff like that. So it's definitely, I think that's another great process. I think when you're looking to keep holdbacks is, are they good feeders, or are the parents good feeders? You did it early. You turned around the stock and you did it early, right?
Lesson learned.
No, and that's a great tip and a great lesson because, sometimes, unfortunately, we love these animals, but sometimes you can't get 100% attached to them because sometimes you have to turn them around because if they're not great eaters, they don't become good breeders. And then, you have an animal that it's taking a lot of time, taking a lot of, space that you could be breeding if that's the goal, right?
So I'm gonna tell you a story. So my 2 years I bred with that stock that was producing all the non-eaters, and they were non-eaters too.
Yeah.
But when I moved to Knoxville, I had a couple babies left over from one of those clutches that I was still assist feeding 7 months later. Mouse tails, pinky pumps, all that. And I talked to Josh and Alicia at one of the shows, and they're like, yeah, that's a failure to thrive. And I was like, failure to thrive? Like, that just wasn't even in my head. I'm like, I'm making them all live. And I was like, man, so I've been like wasting my time for 7 months, you know? But then it just like clicked, and I'm like, God, man, you can't save them all, you know? Like,
You can't. Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said, like, what if I did get it up to sub-adult and I'm still assist feeding it and stuff? Like, that's like no life for it or me. Or if someone bought it, like, I don't want to pass on any problem like that to anybody, you know? So
yeah, for sure. No, I agree, man. And that's, not just passing on the problem too. Then if if it does start eating, then I'll at that point it's not a breeder. You got to sell it as a pet only, and hopefully, that's such a weird, situation there. You sell it as a pet only, right? Now it's up to that person that's buying it to uphold that situation too, right?
Right.
I've thought, part of the breeding, you're going to have those pet onlys, and, you might have a kink tail here or something going on. Once you start running the numbers, it's just, it becomes a numbers game of eventually when are you going to have a issue with a hatchling and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's why these animals produce so many numbers, because in the wild, not all of them are going to survive. There's going to be failure to thrive. There's going to be predation, all the things, and so, yeah, we tend to like project our like human stuff on our animals, and it's not like that,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then you have those babies that, and I had them last year, that went like 3 months without eating, scents and all that stuff, try to assist feed and like would just like basically spit it back out. And then from one day to another, they start eating and perfectly fine, grew great, right? Like very, very interesting situations. And then one weird thing about, male hognose is they'll take themselves off food too, even like adults,
right?
Where they do their own fast, especially during breeding season, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've ever had it, but it's happened to my males a couple times. It's like you got them on small adult mice or anything that has fur, right? All of a sudden, they don't want that. They want like stuff without fur again. And I'm just like, all right, man, whatever you want, I guess. Like, it's like, all right, I'll give you 3 of these large pinkies then, since like you're way too big to be eating them. But if that's what you'll eat, whatever,
Yeah. I have one male that it's like that. For sure, breeding season, he's not eating at all. Comes out of brumation, doesn't want to eat at all. I say about a month after breeding is done, he'll start eating every week for maybe about a month or so. And then he goes back into that situation where I'll eat every other time. I'll eat every 2 weeks and stuff like that, and one of those things, just knowing the animal and trying to figure it out little by little, because he grows fine, great breeder, produces great animals and stuff like that. But I guess he doesn't have a full appetite like the rest of the animals.
The animals will let you know what they want too. I mean, as long as they look healthy and they got a good body structure and everything, then I mean, that's how any of the reptiles I keep, I'm like that. Like some of the female ball pythons are every other week eaters, and some eat every week, and whatever, as long as they look healthy, whatever they want.
Yeah, for sure. And we've touched a little bit about the breeding project and stuff like that, social media and marketing and stuff, because, you grew pretty well on Instagram. You have your YouTube and stuff like that. What was your mindset from the beginning and now on that growth process?
My mindset was in the beginning, and I guess it still is now, but it's you got to have a name out there in order to sell your animals. I mean, yeah, you can produce pretty animals and they'll probably sell, but it's better to be like have people know who you are and feel a connection with you was my intent with all of it. And it's done me well, you know. And still to this day, I mean, I just try to put pretty religious on Instagram. I go on a hiatus every now and then with YouTube because I do edited videos. Man, it's pretty time consuming sometimes, you know.
It is.
And then like during the height of breeding season, I have a bunch of stuff I could film content wise, very little time. And then when it's slowing down, I have less content and more time. So there's always this balancing act, you know, because priority number one is the health and welfare of the animals.
Correct.
And then social media. So, you know, there's always this balancing act, but social media has always been a high priority to me.
Yeah.
Staying consistent, staying out there, putting the logo everywhere, staying in contact with everyone. Like I said, since the beginning, I haven't just stayed within ball pythons. I was already like, I like the leopard gecko community, the hognose, you know, so I'm juggling a lot all the time. Yeah. And then, you know, like I got a normal job and family and all that stuff too, you know, so.
Yeah. You know, that was the question I was going to ask, if you were doing this full time now or you're juggling both, you know.
Yeah, I juggle. I'm always juggling.
Yeah. How go ahead.
No, go ahead. I think
how do you find the time? That's between social media, because social media does take a lot of time. You know, so you say that you try to do Instagram pretty consistent. You know, now YouTube you're doing here and there as you're available. But with the social media, with, you know, feeding your keepers, your breeders, and then babies that you're producing and stuff like that, and then family, right?
It's always a fluid. So man, my like internal motto is be water. So I'm always like trying to adjust and go with the flow. But I wake up earlier than the rest of my family is one of the answers, you know, and do a lot of the caretaking and stuff. And then social media, like you would know because you do social media too, but like in the beginning, it takes you a lot of time to produce whatever you're trying to produce, but you slowly start streamlining stuff. And it's just always a balancing act, man. It's always a balancing act. So I got a routine. It's like X amount of time on Saturday mornings for keeping. Sunday morning, same thing. I film then. I edit Sunday night for my YouTube video. And then Instagram's just always like a daily thing. I also got a Patreon going, so I got that in the mix now. That's something new for me. So it's always a balancing act.
Yeah. With the content that you're producing and stuff like that, are you scheduling now, or you're still going as day by day?
For Instagram, I just go day by day. Like that's something I do in the mornings. Usually I get up, drink my coffee, come check on the animals. I'm drinking my coffee. I'm doing Instagram. On the Patreon side, I schedule stuff for the most part. That one like allows you to schedule it. And then YouTube, I schedule it too. So like I always release, I changed recently, but Thursday nights at 6. So I try to film Sunday and edit it by Sunday night. Sometimes I'm playing a little catch up with the thumbnail or some final edits on Monday, but that's pretty much my routine. And then if I know I'm going out like for a show, then, you know, like there's all the animal prep and stuff. I'm probably skipping a YouTube video for that week.
Yeah.
Because you got like, you want to do pre-work before you leave so you don't come back and have double the work, you know, and all that. So there's a lot going on. And you got animal inventory, the show, blah, blah, blah. So more than likely that week I'm skipping a YouTube video. But Instagram's pretty easy to keep up with, you know?
Yeah. You know, and it's interesting because like with this year having last year hatchlings, you know, doing the breeding, having this year's hatchling and stuff like that, content is basically, you know, videos that I'm putting are in time, back in time,
right.
Because of everything that's going on, the shows. You know, I did what was it called? I'm trying to do one show a month this year too, because for me, at starting, I think that's one of the biggest, you know, promotions you could do for yourself. Get your animals out there, get yourself out there to the community, and it's definitely been a juggling act with that and trying to keep. Like I said, I didn't get double clutches. I think because shows and all that stuff, I didn't push those extra meals in.
Right.
You know, I wasn't able to offer those extra meals, because that's another thing too. The aftermath of a show is not just coming back and jumping right back into your collection. It's
Ah,
putting those animals away, doing the cleaning that didn't get done while you're away, especially if you're traveling far,
yeah.
all that stuff. So it's definitely a grind on all ends there.
Yeah,
You know,
let me know if it's the same for you though. So like you go to a show and vend one weekend, and then when you come back, it feels like there's enough work stacked up to like last you 2 weeks to get back in the swing of things.
yeah,
From just being gone like 2 days, it's like,
Yeah.
man, it takes me a week or two to get back, where I was.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, trying to get back into that same, constant groove. It takes about 2 weeks to get back into it. Because one of the biggest things is the feedings, right? Like, especially
Right.
if you have hatchlings and you're breeding, is like, all right, one of the biggest things I need to get back to is feeding. And then making sure that those babies that went to the show are out of the deli cups and back into the regular enclosure and settling in, and then giving them time to settle in to start feeding again. Right. Like it's a whole juggling act. But like I said, I think it's a necessary part of it, especially when you're starting off. And I think just general now in the current market where, we're not in 2020, 2021, where stuff was flying off the shelves off a morph market.
Right.
The shows are more and more important to be able to have to do them.
Yeah, I agree with that because I was online only until I moved to Tennessee, and even then I waited like a year or two. I've been here 3 years, so I've only really been vending over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And that was like a direct response to the online sales slowing down, And there's a lot, like you said, on the networking side too. So like I've always done the social media networking, but there's a whole nother layer and level up, like face-to-face networking.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because there's those animals that somebody might be interested in online and doesn't pull the trigger there, but if they see the animal in person, they're getting it. You know?
Yeah, Jeff gets me in person at Tinley. I'm like, all right, bring that one to Tinley, and then I go over to his table and I'm like, all right, go ahead and throw that one into you.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, man. And certain genetics like lavender and stuff like that don't picture well. So,
Right.
You see it in person, you're like, man, that's not the same animal. Yeah, it is. It's just the capture of the picture is not the greatest. I had Brittany on, and she gave a couple tips on how to picture hognose and stuff like that, because taking pictures of hognose is a challenge.
Yeah, man, they're squirmy.
They're small, they have all these weird colors, and then they're all over the place. It's like, just stay still for 5 seconds, please.
Right. Yeah, usually I'm taking like ball pythons, I can pose them and do all this thing like they're like a G.I. Joe or something. But hognose, like I'm usually taking them in my hand because I can go like, all right, and then they're like, whoo, like right after I take the picture. So
yeah, man.
But I want to say something on the lavender, man. I slept on lavender because they don't picture well. Every time I see pictures, I'm like,
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm just like, I'm not seeing it, man. Like, it looks like kind of like an axanthic or something in a picture. I'm like, I already have axanthic. What do I need that for?
For sure.
And then I seen them in person. I was like, oh, now I get it.
So. And have you seen the sable lavenders?
Yes.
Those things are, adding the sable to it. It's amazing. I'm waiting to see Swiss chocolate lavenders.
Yeah.
I want to see what's going to happen there.
I've seen a Swiss chocolate toffee belly in person.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen them yet.
I've seen it in person.
How much better is it?
I like it a lot, but
okay.
I'm waiting for the breeders to do their own little, I don't want to steal their thunder, but I've seen it in person.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
Yeah. For
sure.
Nice. Yeah. And especially with lavenders and stuff like that, once you start adding polygenics like the purple line, the red lines and all that stuff, then it starts intensifying different colors. Same thing. You can't see them in picture. That once you see them in person, you're like, okay, that's the animal I want. Right. I had that success. Was it in Houston? Was it Reptilian Nation Houston? I had Arctic lavenders. I had Arctic corals and stuff like that weren't moving online. I went to the show. almost all of them win.
Right.
You know, they're like, people was like, oh man, that's one of the best I've seen. That looks great coloring and stuff like that.
Right.
So, you know, it was cool to see that. Right. Um, you know, you touched something on something very important, networking within, you know, our community and in between the species too, because we have our, you know, each species has their own little niche circle and stuff like that,
And
right?
there's circles within that circle and everything too,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. How did you, you know, being able, especially with like leopard gecko, hognose, and the ball python, how have you like networked and traveled between those circles?
It's all through social media, basically, but it's just reaching out, man.
Yeah,
Like going against my nature. I'm normally like a introspective recluse. I could hide in my snake room all day long, but I want to succeed with my reptile venture, so I have to reach out. And you know, there's a lot of like, it's part of my learning process through everything too. It's like, all right, you listen to ball python stuff, you hear ball python stuff, but there's all these lessons to be learned between the species too, you know. And like you can learn stuff from leopard geckos that applies to other places too. Like that's mainly like when my kids wanted to get into leopard geckos, I was all for it because I was like, I really need to learn about the polygenics and line breeding, and leopard geckos are like good with that, you know. And then that applies over in the hognose world, you know. So it's like, to me, I just want to learn as much as possible, basically.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, that was one of my, when I first started into like deep diving into the reptile world, because, you know, you have the reptile keeper that it's on the outskirts and just keeps it one stuff that doesn't know about what we're doing right now, right?
Right.
Doesn't know that this is a whole nother world. They just go either to their local reptile shop or to one of the big box stores, reptile stores, and buys a, you know, reptile, their snake, their gecko, goes home and keeps it, right?
Right.
Doesn't ever dive deep into it. So before diving deep into this, you know, or when I first did, I mean, it was mainly ball python content that I started consuming.
Yes.
Even having hognose, it was mainly ball python. And I'll tell you this: I learned a lot from the ball python communities. You know, do's and don'ts, both, right?
Right.
But a lot of like the community's do's and don'ts, or just how to set up at a shows and stuff like that, comes originally from the ball python communities in the ball python world. You know, that the other species start adopting, and then maybe even changing for their own species as it evolves, right?
Right.
So
yeah, I've since day one, I've always like, back to like audio podcasts and stuff, like Strength and Leos, like that was the leopard gecko one. Then there was like a From the Ground Up, that was the corn snake one. I don't own any corn snakes, but I was listening to all their content and stuff, you know.
Yeah,
so
sure. Let's say, and then like with your future plans in breeding and ball pythons and stuff like that, where do you think you see yourself in the next 5 years with this?
It's funny that you say 5 years. So in 5 years, my youngest kid will be graduating high school. So I'm hoping between now and then, I'll just keep reinvesting all my profits into this. And I'm hoping at that 5-year mark, once the last of my kids is out, then that changes my personal financial situation. That, you know, everything will be reduced. And then at that point, I'll be like looking to see if it's like a full-time option, a part-time option. You know, I've got it worked out with my work to where like maybe I go into work and work 3 12-hour days, and then I have the rest of the week, you know, like just like start thinking about options like that. Until then, though, until the last of the kids are out, I'll still keep my normal full-time job. But yeah.
For sure. See, and I like to ask the 5 years, because to me, I mean, in general, right? 5 years it's any business, anything that's going to majorly happen in history is within a 5-year period, right?
Right.
So, you know, it just happens to be your kids
Yeah,
graduating.
it happens to coincide with that. But yeah, so that's like basically my 5-year goal is to reevaluate and see where I'm at, you know, at that point. But so I got 5 more years of just keep reinvesting and keep, you know, breeding for the future and all that stuff. And I'm sure things will balance more between species and stuff too. Things might go up in one area and down in another, just whatever. I'm prepared to pivot, you know.
Yeah.
So
And one thing you've mentioned multiple times here was where like, as a business owner or doing this as, as a either a part-time business or full-time business, um, we all want to make money, right? We all want to be profitable at the end of the year. But I think the biggest, what's it called, goal somebody should have when they're first starting is self-sustainability within the reptiles.
right.
If you're able to feed your animals, reinvest, buy everything that you need to maintain your animals, that's not coming out of your own pocket, I think already you're winning. Especially in the first year or two, you're already winning there. And then you can scale up eventually and start thinking about profit margins and stuff like that.
Yeah,
You know?
I was just talking to somebody the other day about that. I was like, I consider what I'm doing winning right now because I haven't touched like my 9 to 5 job money for reptiles in years at this point.
Mhm.
Like the reptiles do everything for themselves. I got to put in the man hours, and
Right.
the leg work, but like they pay for the shows, they pay for the food, they pay for more reptiles. It's completely self-sustaining.
Mhm.
So I totally agree with you. And for anyone that might be listening or whatever, that's like on the fence about whatever, like that should be like your first like short-term goal. Get the self-sustainability.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Especially when we start producing babies, to feed those babies, the bill adds up real fast.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
I remember back in the beginning, I'd be like, man, feeding one snake is nothing a week. But
Yeah.
yeah, start multiplying that by hundreds, and you're like, oh man, this food bill is pretty high.
Yeah, for sure. And we're gonna start closing out, but one of the last questions I want to ask you was like, what is one of the most rewarding, you know, things to happen with you within the reptile world or breeding and stuff like that?
Being able to give back to people that are like, I'd say younger in the hobby, I guess is
Hmm.
what you call it, is being able to give back and help people out. That's the most rewarding thing,
That's
right
good.
now.
Yeah.
Or like when I see someone at Tinley I've never seen before and they just come up and be like, man, I've been watching your YouTube channel for years. This video or that video, whatever they say, like, help me out so much. Thanks, for, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
that's what means the most to me. Like, stuff that I've put out there, like, helps people.
That's good. Yeah, and not to do it because you want it to come back to you, but eventually it becomes full circle, and it does come back. If you put it out there, eventually it comes back to you. Either way, goods or bads, right? So
And,
I
well,
think
and
that
that's another bonus about doing shows because that was like, you see comments on
yeah,
all the small social media platform and stuff. And, you're like, oh, yeah, that's cool. That's nice. But it means a lot more like when somebody comes up to you and like seeks
yeah,
you out and like, man. And then I give them a big old hug. And some people
yeah,
are like, what the? I'm like, I'm a hugger, man.
yeah,
Bring it in,
yeah, man. Because that hard work that you've put out there, it's almost a validation of that hard work. Like, okay, what I'm doing is actually helping somebody, and it's validating what I'm doing too. So it makes you good. It makes you happy. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
that affirmation that like, I
Yeah.
was on the right track.
Hmm.
And it's good because like I get lost in my own little world in the snake room, and like, it's just kind of like it's just a daily grind.
Yeah.
This is like, okay, it's feeding day, it's cleaning day, whatever, and
Yeah.
then all this time goes by, and I'm like, man, there's another outside world out there. That's where shows come in, and
For
yeah,
sure.
that's like my biggest. Like I've produced cool stuff and I've bought cool stuff and all that, but the biggest thing that brightens my life in the reptile world is like knowing that I've helped somebody else out, and I'll
Hmm.
continue to help people out.
Hmm. For sure. And being smaller, it's to me, right now it's a blessing too, because stuff that I sell off, and stuff like that. And what I tell people is like, keep me updated. Send me pictures of them growing up, getting bigger, shedding, stuff like that. And it's cool to get those videos, those pictures. Oh, look, it's just shed. Look how big it is and stuff like, man, that looks really good.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to say, because I can imagine like you said, like a JMG or Canova or something like that, how big there is. It's impossible for them to be able to get that, those 100% connections with their customers, not because they don't want to. It's just the mass effect that they have and how
Right.
many animals are selling.
Yeah,
you know
the volume,
the volume.
yeah, like someone, well, Jeff does too, but like they both like they export all over the world, and
Hmm.
there's just a
Yeah.
lot of volume going
Yeah.
on. So
For sure. Yeah. And then have you ever what is your like, one thing that you wish you wouldn't have done, or now you look backwards like I should have done it this way? Either species.
well, I'd say in the beginning, try to stay focused on a project, but I'm still like on the fence about that because like yeah, I bought some pretty things that I eventually just sold off because it didn't make sense for the breeding aspect. But I think maybe that's something that we all kind of got to go through, you know? It's
Yeah.
just like a rite of passage in a way. But I would say that like I did essentially waste money in the beginning by buying some animals just because I thought they were pretty. I had no plan for them. They didn't serve any purpose ever in my breeding plan.
Yeah.
I eventually sold them off, and all that, but staying focused and doing more research before building a collection would probably be my one thing right there.
Yeah. No, and that's a good one. That's a real good one because I think we've probably all been in that process, in that step too, where like, man, that looks really cool. I'm gonna buy it. And then a year maybe might pass by and you're like, where does it fit in my project? Right. Like
Right.
it really doesn't. But yeah, I think that's a great tip there. And
Well, there was kind of like a thing that was put out there at that time, like 2019, early 2020. I was like, well, as long as it's a female, you can always breed it type thing. I'd be like, oh, that's a pretty one. And it's a female. I'll buy it, and like that was really the wrong information that should have been.
Sure.
That information should have been put out. But I mean, I took it, whatever. I take responsibility for it, but I should have thought it through a little bit further. But that wised me up. Now I think about purchases a lot more. Long term, what's it going to do for me?
Yeah. And then are you breeding for high end and pet level stuff, or you're or either or?
So I no longer. I mean, with the hog nose, I'm breeding for some certain holdbacks. So there's obviously some just whatever in there. For the ball pythons, though, this will be the first year I don't have any of like what you call the money clutches. This is like, so I don't have any pairings that are geared towards any pet buyers. Like I've been doing those a little bit, every year, but all my multiple recessive projects have taken up all the room, like with all the holdbacks and stuff. So
okay,
this will be my first year that every single pairing is like something towards my main project.
Okay, yeah. So and it seems like you're breeding for projects that you're looking yourself to keep leveling and getting better at, than just maybe producing what's hot right now or what's gonna move. On the shows or on the line.
Yeah, it's because it's like I was doing that for a little bit, like with a small portion of my collection, but it's like what's hot this year may not be hot next year.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen projects take massive dives within the span of 6 months, and it's hard to predict the future. So what I kind of tell people now is like, and it's very cliche, but as long as you like what you're opening up the drawer and looking at, that's what's most important. Like stay on track. I mean, of course there's some do's and don'ts, whatever, but like you got to like it. Cause you're at the end of the day, you're the one taking care of it every day, doing all the things, feeding it, cleaning it, doing all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, man, it's like, you wake up early before your family and do certain things. It's like, sometimes it is a daunting job, to be able to do this. And there's a lot of responsibilities, a lot of steps. I think there's a lot of like time consuming steps within taking care of reptiles, especially at a larger collection size and stuff like that, where I don't think that gets talked about enough sometimes, where like, if you produce this much, it might take you 2 days to feed certain babies, and stuff like that.
Yeah, there used to be numbers in the ball python world. Like they're like, well, I want to hit 50 clutches. I want to hit 100 clutches a year. And I was like, man, that's a lot of numbers to throw around because you got to multiply that by at least 6, like that's how many babies you'll have. Oh, man, I learned 30 is good for me. Like 30 clutches of ball pythons, I'm good. Like that puts me up there in my upper limit of workload that I can handle, but everything else is still taken care of. I'm good with that. While I'm still working a full-time job, 30 is my limit.
Yes.
So that's what I learned.
That's a good number, to have, to realize yourself, okay, if I produce this much this year, I'm able to physically maintain them, financially maintain them, because there's certain many hours a day, especially if, like you said, if you're someone that has a full-time job and doing this as well, there's a point where you spread yourself too thin, and then the animals or your personal life
you're
takes a hit.
Skimming somewhere, you're skimming,
Yeah,
so then like back to the balance, like as my hognose production keeps increasing more and more, maybe I need to back down on ball python clutches per year. Like maybe I knock that down to like 20-25 because I got more hognose, so that'll be my next balancing act right there.
Okay.
But so just year by year. But I'm fortunate in the aspect that my ball python season is the complete opposite of everyone else's. So all my stuff hatches in the winter. Like when the hognoses are brumating, that's my ball python season. So right now my ball pythons are slow and I'm hatching hognose. So it enables me to just stay busy year round.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's a good balance to have.
Yeah.
So for next year, because next year you said you'll have a good amount of hognose breeding. What are the combos you're trying to hit on both ball pythons and hognose I guess this year, right? For ball pythons, because it'll be later on in the year.
Yeah. So ball pythons, I'm actually, for the first time ever, I'm actually pairing for the G stripe clown, like double visual. I've been adding like all these other recessives to it and stuff. And shrapnel clowns, that's a little pet project for ball pythons. And then for hognoses, man, next year, well, I'll be still making some storm cloud parts. And then that's when I'll be firing up my reds. Hopefully they go. Like I'll be firing up reds. And then I'll be working super Arctics. That's like in the snow project. I don't really want to hit a super Arctic snow, but if it happens, it happens. But I'll be doing super Arctics, and then the reds will be what I'm looking forward to next year for like visual hogs.
Gotcha. Yeah. And those are two projects that are good to be able to mix in together too.
Yeah.
The snow, the red stuff. I don't know if you've seen the extreme red snows that Jeff has.
Yeah.
And then those are really, really nice. The contrast between the pattern and the background are really nice.
That's what's cool about hogs. So like in ball python, you just think genetics, but then like with hognose, you got the whole polygenic side. So like you have a snow project. Well, what polygenics are we putting into it? And then it's like a different animal,
Correct. Yeah, man. So. Yeah, for sure. So any topic, anything that we didn't touch over tonight that you wanted to bring out or that you wanted to talk about?
No.
Stuff that? No, cool.
No, we're good.
All right, man. Thank you again for everybody that watched tonight. Thank you, Shane, for taking your time coming on. Make sure you guys, like I said, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, stay tuned to any new videos, podcasts that we're doing. And if you guys want to, if you're ball python breeders here and you want to get a hognose, this Sunday, actually at 1 p.m. Eastern, we're going to do a live drawing for some giveaways, giving away a hognose. Shane's information in the description below, so go follow him on on his social media and stuff. We didn't touch about Patreon, but you have a Patreon, so if somebody is looking to join Patreon, go check it out with that. So without further ado, thank you guys, everybody, for having a good night with us, and we'll see you guys on the next one.